Hello, everyone. I'm Arjun Srinivasan. I'm a member of the research staff at Tableau. And today I'll be talking about my work with Vidya Setlur on recommending utterances for conversational visual analysis. So to set up some context, natural language interfaces for visual analysis are gaining traction both within academic research as well as part of commercial systems. And with the advancements in NLP, these systems have gotten much smarter when it comes to language understanding and allowing people to create visualizations through language. But from a user experience standpoint, especially in the context of exploratory visual analysis, there are two key challenges that still persist in these systems. The first one is knowing what aspects of the data to explore and analyze. And the second is knowing how to phrase the utterances that abide with the system's understanding capabilities. More specifically, given a data set, users need to decide what attributes they want to look at, what charts they want to consider, and each of these decisions ultimately have implications on the discoveries made during analysis. And in other cases, even when users know what they want to visualize, they may not be fully aware of the system's understanding capabilities and know how to phrase the utterances so the system can best understand them. So to address these challenges, we investigate how we can leverage utterance recommendations as a way to guide visual analysis while also implicitly helping users discover and learn natural language capabilities of the system. Before I jump into too many details, I'll now give a quick demo of our prototype tool, Snowy, that presents utterance recommendations in the context of a visualization system that supports both language input as well as manual view specification. And for the demo, I'll be using this data set of movies where each row is a movie and attributes are different properties of the movie, including the release year, genre, worldwide gross, and so on. And just to give a brief overview of the prototype's UI, on the left, you have the attributes and view specification panel. In the center, you have the input, natural language input region and the visualization canvas. And on the right, you have the system generated recommendations. So now let's walk through an example of using Snowy to work with the movies data set I just showed. So right off the bat here, Snowy presents utterance recommendations covering a wide range of analytic intents. So for instance, this first one, how many items exist for each content rating, gives you a sense for the distribution, or something like the last utterance here, which is what is the trend of worldwide gross across over the years, gives you a sense for an attribute's changes over time. So if I go ahead and select this last recommendation, Snowy treats that as my active input and creates a line chart in response. Snowy now also presents some follow-up recommendations on the top right corner. And you can notice that some of these recommendations are much more terser. So for instance, for the first one, instead of something like show me worldwide gross over the years for each content rating, this recommendation just reads compare across content ratings. Now, if I select this, the system then updates the line chart to a multi-series line chart. And you can notice this spike in the blue line starting around the year 2000. And turns out Snowy also proactively was looking at this chart as we were and suggests a follow-up utterance in this case, in case you want to drill down into that spike between 2000 and 2005. Skimming through the new enquiries that are suggested, you can notice that the trend stays at the bottom because we've issued that utterance a couple of times. But the phrasing for that utterance, now show changes in production budget instead, implies that you can use this utterance to update or swap the active attribute in your chart. So specifically, if I go ahead and select this, the view largely remains the same, except on the y-axis now, instead of having the worldwide gross, you have the production budget. Now, looking at the recommendations again, I find this third one about comparing average IMDb ratings across major genres somewhat interesting because it's slightly different from what we've been asking, which is largely to look at the trends. So I like this utterance, but not necessarily the attributes, IMDb ratings, and genres or the combination there. So I'll go ahead and ask the system for more examples of different phrasings and attributes I can use to kind of ask similar questions. And I noticed this last one talking about the average gross across genres and find it somewhat interesting. So I'll go ahead and select this. And in response, you can see that the system goes ahead and creates a bar chart. And immediately I can notice that action and adventure have pretty high values compared to the other genres. And Snowy also makes this observation and suggests looking at just action, adventure, and musical, because those are the three highest grossing genres. But instead of filtering, for now, I'll just go ahead and select these three categories with my mouse to get a better sense for their values. And notice that the follow-up utterances now talk about didactic utterances that I can issue to the system. So in this case, it's to compute the average values for the categories that I selected. So I picked that, and Snowy then computes the average just for the 3 bars that I had selected. Now, hopefully that demo gives you a little feel for what Snowy's interface looks like and the different types of recommendations that it presents. I'm not going to jump into the implementation details in depth here, but I'll walk through an example to give you a high-level sense for how we generate the recommendations, because that's really the novel piece here. So let's take the example of this system state from the demo I just showed, where I entered show average worldwide gross by major genres as my input query, and then the system returned the bar chart as well as a set of recommendations on the right. Now, to generate these recommendations given the active utterance and chart, Snowy first adds some more knowledge to its kind of context by looking at the number of interactions that were previously performed with the different attributes as well as the different analytic intents supported by the tool. Then using this as the set of input, Snowy performs 3 steps to generate the actual recommendations. First, the system considers all possible operations and eliminates those that don't apply to the current interface state. So specifically in this case, the bar chart doesn't already have a filter applied to it, so modifying a filter doesn't make sense and gets eliminated. Then based on the active interface state and the previous user interactions, the system reorders the valid set of utterances or valid set of operations. And once it finalizes the categories it should show, it then goes ahead and parameterizes them to show the actual attributes or with the actual attributes that would be shown. So for instance, in this first case of applying a filter, the system selects the attribute major genre because that's in the active chart, and then action, adventure, and musical as categories because those are the most dominant genres in the active chart. And as a final step, the system then uses a set of predefined grammar rules to phrase the actual utterances that get shown in the interface. Now, to verify the utility of the generated recommendations and get some feedback on the prototype's usability, we conducted a preliminary study with 10 participants. All sessions were conducted remotely, with sessions lasting about 50 minutes on average. And during each session, participants performed both targeted analysis as well as open-ended exploration with 2 different data sets. The sessions also included a questionnaire and interview phase that focused specifically on the use of recommendations. And at a high level, participants said that the recommendations didn't intervene with their targeted analysis phase, but in the case of exploratory data exploration, the recommendations not only guided, but in some cases even augmented their analytic workflow. However, the feedback on the interestingness of recommendations was a little more mixed, primarily because participants had this notion that the system doesn't have enough knowledge to preempt what they're actually interested in. But as highlighted by the third comment here, even in cases where participants had this kind of mixed reaction to the interestingness, they found having the phrasing to be useful. And this appreciation for the recommendation phrasings was in fact a general sentiment across participants, suggesting there's more value in investigating their impact on learnability specifically going forward. Speaking of going forward, one line of work that we're really excited about to explore is to look at new scenarios and applications that utterance recommendations can be leveraged in. So to give a more specific example, Snowy's current interface is very WIMP and desktop focused. But the same set of recommendations can be leveraged in other scenarios like mobile devices and chat-based visualization tools, where they become much more vital and salient given the limited screen space, as well as the prominence of natural language as an input modality. So to summarize, we describe how natural language interfaces for visualization can generate and present utterance recommendations, and more specifically, highlight how these recommendations can guide visual analysis while implicitly aiding learning and discovery of natural language features. And with that, I'll be happy to take any questions. Thank you.